So 4 questions to ask about setting that will help you, determine what kind of details you might want to search for, that you might want to add into your story. So the first thing, why is my computer having a fit right now? There we go. Okay, technology. Okay, so the first thing that you should know is what are the genre expectations for setting and world building. So we definitely want to, overall know that no matter what genre you're working with, setting grounds your readers in time and space. And so there are several genres, though, that do rely a little bit more heavily on world building or making sure that your setting has enough description. And so if you are an author who writes, in science fiction and fantasy, you know that world building is really, really crucial. So especially if you have second world fantasy where you're taking us to this whole new place that we've never seen before, you're taking us to another planet, readers do have pretty consistent expectations that there's going to be like a good chunk of setting description to help them understand and to really see your world. In my experience with historical fiction, same thing. I have to make sure that my setting is like dropping my readers right there in that time and space that they can feel, that they're in the 19th century, or maybe you're writing about ancient Greece, maybe you're writing about medieval times, but historical fiction definitely relies a lot more on setting. So does dystopian fiction. So if you have this future world, we want to know what that looks like. What's the landscape? What can we expect? And then another one is survival stories. So if you have your characters lost at sea, which would freak me out, I have a hard time with survival stories. If they're lost in the forest or in the mountains, even though they do scare me a little bit because I am definitely a city girl, I will admit it. But one of my very favorite survival stories, if any of you are familiar with the YA author Mindy McGinnis, she wrote this novel, Be Not Far From Me, and her main character gets lost in the Smoky Mountains. And my dad lived outside the Smoky Mountains. And so, like driving sometimes through Tennessee, I'm like, if I got lost out here, it would be the end of me. But in this case, we have nature, setting that's really, really crucial to the story. But again, no matter what you write, your setting is definitely going to affect your characters. If you're writing a small town romance, having your characters exist and move about that small town, that's going to mean a lot to your readers. And I can tell you that, me personally, because as I said, I'm a sucker for description and a good setting. I personally love reading about new places because it's like being a tourist in the book that I'm reading. So I always appreciate that. The second question to ask is, what is your main character's relationship to the setting? So, were they born and raised there and never left? Are they passing through? Are they a newcomer, forced there by life circumstance? So, all in all, what is your main character in your setting? What is that relationship? The nice thing is that if you're looking for like a real natural way to introduce world building and setting, having a main character either be a newcomer to that place or like a newcomer arriving is kind of that nice way to be like, oh, newbie, we can show you around, and it sounds natural. And of course, setting can be used in characterization, which I do discuss in an upcoming slide. Now, if one thing to remember, though, in terms of your main character's relationship with the setting, is that if they're somebody who's from a real place, make sure that you're avoiding overgeneralized, like simplified portrayals. For example, if you had a character who lives in New York City and that character's only noticing the Statue of Liberty in Times Square, I can guarantee that most New Yorkers are probably avoiding those places. For a year of my life, I lived in New Orleans, and Mardi Gras, cool when you're a tourist, not cool when you are an actual resident of the city of New Orleans. So, definitely using characters to show off unique aspects of your setting. My last project, set in 1890 Philadelphia, tons of historical places. My main characters, Ed and Will, they're moving all over the city. They passed, Independence Hall. They passed, where they have the Liberty Bell. I didn't tap into those. They didn't have any part in my story, but there were times that I tried to kind of stitch in some famous Philadelphia landmarks. It didn't quite work, but I was able to use others that actually really unique in the story and showcase really interesting things about the city of Philadelphia. Like I got to work with their whole history of their marketplaces, which are really infamous. So that was a lot of fun. And to me, showcases something that's really unique about the city. The third question that you want to ask is, what is the setting's relationship to plot and or theme? When you have a main character's, using the main character's relationship or interaction with a setting can make their journey visual. So let's say you're writing a story about a couple, they're on the outs, they're not sure if they're going to repair their relationship, but they buy this old house and they're fixing it up together. So as they're fixing up the house, they're also fixing their relationship. So, definitely, finding those places that you could use setting to your advantage. Is setting central to the story? As I mentioned, survival stories, haunted house stories. Oh, I love sentient forest stories. My most recent favorite one is Kosako Jackson, When the Forest Demands Its Due. So if you like horror and creepy forests, oh, go for it. It's awesome. It just draws you in. Um, but one thing to know as well with your plot and theme, if you have a story that is a little complex with setting, so we're talking about time travel stories, portal stories, just make sure that all of your settings are really distinct so that your audience can easily follow as you jump from setting to setting. And then finally, the fourth question is, what are your writer limitations? And, all of us as writers, we are creating our stories through our lenses, our own experiences, our own perception. So is there something about our setting, that we might have to be conscious of, that we might have to learn? This really does apply to, real settings, actual landscapes, cities, things like that. This awareness can also help drive questions with your BFFs, with your beta readers. How is this coming across? I often talk about my awareness that was created. I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, so I have a Midwest lens. I've spent most of my adult life living in the Midwest, except that year in New Orleans where Mardi Gras was not cool. I traveled to Providence, Rhode Island a number of years ago for a previous book. And so the book setting was 1840 Providence, Fall River, Massachusetts, and Newport, Rhode Island. So they're all about like 45 minutes apart. When I got out there, because I had not been to the East Coast as an adult, and certainly not as an adult writer with a mission for research, there were a couple things that I noticed. It was way rockier than I thought it would be. Everything was so much closer together. And that I'm talking the buildings, like the towns. I was in Providence. I'm like, what do you mean Boston is only an hour away? New York City is only 2 hours from here. Listen, I come from a place where you drive for 5 hours through Illinois and you're still in Illinois, or if you've ever driven like, north, south in the state of Indiana. So it blew my mind. It's not something that I really considered. And those were just really fine touches, that can make a manuscript pop. This is all about texture. This is all about, the little details that just bring something to life. So having that, the awareness of your writer lens or your writer limitations can be really useful as we go through this process or as you're writing. And it's also something to be aware of if you try a new genre that relies real heavily on setting. So those are the four questions.